the Stanley Kubrick interview. Well, getting back to O'Neill, the O'Neill interview had these two gals, and they went. I went through about a dozen people who to ask them to do this show, and I ended up with these three, and it's a very good interview. There's Kubrick one. I ended up with just two guys. There's the one guy who's really good, and then there's this young guy who's got this site, Must See Films, but he's whispering through the most of the
Yeah,
interview.
exactly.
And
You
it's
can't
like
hear what his thoughts are.
I 3 or 4 times on camera I said, "Could you speak up a little bit, Darren?" And he wouldn't speak up. Darren Foley was his name. He knew a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
He wasn't like the fellow in Cassavetes. He wasn't an Edwin, but
yeah.
but he was just whispering. It's like come on, a little bit more. The Serling show was
He seems to have a passion for it too, but it's just the vocal. It's kind of horrendous. It is the big detractor there, but the content of the Kubrick one, I think, is one of the better ones in terms of how much they get Kubrick. Kubrick seems to be one of those people either people completely don't get, or the few experts that know about Kubrick really get, because he at his best he was so ahead of the other American directors.
now the Serling one. I I contacted the daughter and I contacted some people independent of her, Ann Serling, and I couldn't get anyone outside of her. So she recommended these two fellows who appeared with her, both of them named Mark Olshaker and Mark something or other, and they did very well. But the interesting thing was, Ann Serling was the least interesting of the three.
Yes.
And the thing was, she's a very nice woman, uh, lovely person. I nothing against her, but there were several times she started tearing up, talking
Yeah.
about her father who died 40 years ago, and I'm like, holy cow! I mean, you got to get over at some point, you know. Uh, but she made a couple of points about him biographically, but the other two guys were very good talking about Serling. Uh, I made the good point too that this is me feeding a good example of me feeding people something that isn't isn't necessarily uh, in the public conscious that much. Is later on I did it with a third man talking about Orson Welles' directorial influence on it. But here I talk about how Serling has constantly been derided as having his original screenplay for the Planet of the Apes. Uh, the producers say, "Oh no, we didn't take much from him." But I'm like, get out of here, get the fuck out of here. I mean, there are 8, 10, 12 major moments in that film that are direct Serling. I don't give a shit how many script doctors you got. They're Serling, and that gave them a good in to talk for 5 or 10 minutes about that. Um, so that was a very good interview too.
A few points about all three of them. The Eugene O'Neill one, they fall into the standard of taking long days' journey to the night as his greatest work, when The Iceman Cometh is probably a notch above. With the Kubrick one, I do think they make a few good points, especially when they describe the ending of Doctor Strangelove as having a double ending, where there's the visual of the atom bombs going off to that Vera Ling song, as well as what comes after, and the ambiguity of that. The Ron Serling one, I would have been more interested in, what they think of him as a teleplay writer too, because his teleplays were even better than the Twilight Zone stuff, at least as written, probably
Yeah.
not visually.